He said what? Let's talk about some of the greatest trash talkers in MMA history. That's such a relevant topic right now on Twitter. People talking about just that. People talking. When we look back at the sport historically, we look back at someone like Tito Ortiz and his antics. He arguably became popular, more popular than Chuck Liddell, someone who could beat him by using antics, wearing T-shirts, having them made, marketing himself. His mouth got him into a lot of fights. Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz is widely loved. Widely. And it's due to some of his even awkwardness, if you will. Michael Bisping. Didn't always start that way to me. He started later in his career becoming a bad guy persona. But if you notice, later in his career is whenever he started getting opportunities to fight for world titles and became a champ. He had to separate himself by talking trash. One that Rogan has called better than Muhammad Ali was Chael Sonnen. Do I think Chael Sonnen is a better talker than Muhammad Ali? No. But I do think he has relevance in this conversation. Last, let's look at Conor McGregor. That's what he has done. He is arguably the wealthiest MMA fighter of all time, pre even the Mayweather fight. And that's all mouth. Now, granted, each one of these guys have had to back it up at one point or another. You talk enough, you have to do something about it. Let's look at Tito Ortiz. Tito Ortiz's style, a lot of people found cringy. A lot of people found unsettling. They just didn't like him. And he became one of the guys that you tuned into because you wanted to see him lose. Now, that still sells tickets. You would rather be hated than not cared about, right? So even with people tuning in to watch him lose, he's still getting you to tune in. Pretty smart marketing to me. You know, if he had average skill set or the skill set that he had and he was quiet, look at John Fitch. John Fitch was an excellent fighter. He was great, especially in his era. He was dominant using his wrestling. He got, cut from the UFC. He wasn't entertaining. And I think that's where, Chael Sonnen grabbed the horns on that bull as he found out if he makes it entertainment, aside from the skill set and the wrestling and the fighting, if he entertained you, you tune in. And I think Tito had that down first. Now, in this order is not necessarily any real order. It was just a couple seconds I threw it together. But I don't remember anyone mouthier in the beginning than Tito. Modern day Tito Ortiz, I would say, is Henry Cejudo. He's trying to market himself. It's almost doing more bad than it is good. On that note, at least you know who he is. Bad attention is better than no attention at all. To that, I say, Henry, keep doing what you're doing, because now you're becoming a household name. Good, bad, or indifferent, you're becoming a household name. He's won gold medals in the Olympics. The guy should be a household name. He fought in the UFC. He doesn't have a giant following. A lot of people don't get behind. Look at Demetrius Johnson. People don't get behind the smaller weight classes. Is it fair? Is it unfortunate? That being said, he should have been a household name. People should have got behind him. What he should be doing is studying what Kurt Angle did in the WWE, or WWF back then even. He should take the Kurt Angle approach. He should wear his gold medals everywhere. He literally should be the 2019 version of Kurt Angle, right? Play that bad guy role versus the cringy stuff that he's been doing lately. Henry Cejudo is the modern day Tito Ortiz. Nick Diaz was misunderstood from the beginning. Suffers from social anxiety. Tough as all get out. He's my favorite fighter of all time. I once wrote an article on him that went on MMAfreak.com where I call him the greatest fighter of all time because of his catchweight fights. He's fought from anywhere from 155 to 195. He's fought all over the board in weight classes. He's the most versatile guy. This isn't what we're talking about. That's neither here nor there. I can go all day about Nick Diaz. But Nick was misunderstood. And a lot of things that he said out of anger was taken as jokes because he wasn't able to articulate his point well enough. We didn't learn this side of Nick until later in his career when he said, "Don't be scared, homie." And when he's talking about, the George St. Pierre mess and the Anderson Silva stuff and the Jason Mayhem Miller stuff, we find later in life he was trying to articulate. At the time, we thought it was hilarious. The modern day Nick is Nate. I always said Nate was Nick's little brother, and he's finally broke out of that. Everyone said that, but he finally broke that mold. But I always said he was the less good version of Nick, and I think that's definitely what he didn't want to hear. I always said if Nick and Nate were to fight, Nick would make easy work of him. He just didn't have the talent that his brother had. He has the talking ability, though. One of his lines that'll go down in history, they should have a new thing in the UFC for greatest slogans or greatest statements ever said by a UFC fighter. Make a category of that. I mean, Stephan Bonner's in there, for goodness sakes. That being said, touch butt in the park with the dork with the ponytail, that whole thing should be in the UFC Hall of Fame. I don't think anything garnered more attention than that and was more widely repeated and still laughed about today. Playing touch butt with that dork in the park with the ponytail. Nate is misunderstood like Nick, but it's hilarious. He's made a great career out of it. He's gotten big fights by talking. He grabbed the mic and it was... the whole thing's just beeped out and he's yelling at Conor McGregor. He goes off on Conor McGregor. We found it entertaining and hilarious, and he got the fight. Pretty smart. Michael Bisping. I don't have anyone to compare him to, really, because I don't know anyone that's spitting on people's cornermen. Michael, that was wrong. That was dirty, Mike. You know what you did. That being said, my wife always said, love Michael Bisping or hate Michael Bisping. He's a great fighter. And you either liked him for his antics or you hated him for his antics. But at the end of the day, Michael Bisping could fight. So he didn't have that persona, in my opinion, the whole time, though. His tough seasons, he was kind of a dislikable guy. But the Dan Henderson stuff, really, he took the bad guy approach, which was smart. Because then he became a household name. But when he got beat by Rashad Evans, I don't think anybody really cared who he was. Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen's style is what I'm telling Henry Cejudo to bite. The WWE style. Make it entertainment and then show up and fight. But he really should take the Kurt Angle approach. Why he's not taking the Kurt Angle approach, I don't know. But that's exactly what he should be doing because he's most like Kurt Angle. Chael Sonnen, I think, even said in the very beginning, CM Punk was helping him be creative with his writing and his speeches. Chael also took a bite from Muhammad Ali and was rehearsed. He knew what he was going to say. Nothing that Chael said was authentic and from the top of the head, like Nick or Nate Diaz. They're just spitballing. Which goes to the next guy, Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor's quick. He's sharp. He's fast. He thinks on his feet. When Jeremy Stevens said, I'm the hardest hitting 155er in the business, and he turns around and says, who was that guy? Right? You remember that? That was quick. You're not going to get in a battle of wit with Conor McGregor. You don't want to get into a battle of wit with Conor McGregor. You're going to lose. Half the time, that's the problem, is people play his game, and they play into his game. He beats you mentally, then he beats you physically with a skill set. Conor McGregor is a thug. And that's what it boils down to also. Throwing that dolly through the glass and injuring helpless people on a bus, innocent people on a bus, never has Conor McGregor's stock been higher. People loved him for that. That's crazy. If you saw that happen in real life, you would want that guy in jail and arrested and away from society. But because an entertainer does it, it's art, it's poetic, it's pure rage, right? I don't know. At the end of the day, I pose to you, who's on your list? Did it help them? Have you seen it go bad? Have you seen it go good? What's your experience? What did he say?